parable of the aqueduct in a little valley surrounded by green mountains and a river that sang as it ran. Two inseparable friends lived, Pablo and Bruno. Pablo was a skinny man with curious eyes, and his hair was always disheveled, as if the wind was chasing him. Bruno, on the other hand, was big, with a loud laugh and hands that seemed to have been born for the job. Despite their differences, they had something in common. The two dreamed big. One afternoon, while resting under a tree by the river, after working the field, Bruno, as always, broke the silence. "Pablo, I'm telling you, one day I'm going to be the most important man in town. I'm going to have cows, a big house, and so much money that I won't know what to spend it on. They're going to respect me. You'll see," he said, shaking a branch as if it were his imaginary scepter. Pablo, who was lying with his hands behind his head, threw a pebble into the water and smiled. "That's fine, Bruno, but I don't want just money. I want something that lasts, something that doesn't disappear when I get tired or leave." Bruno turned to look at him, confused. "Something that lasts? Stop being silly, Pablo. With money you can buy whatever you want. That's the only thing that matters." Before Pablo could answer, the mayor's deep voice resounded from the town square. "Attention, attention. We need 2 workers to bring water from the mountain spring to the town. It will be paid for each cube they deliver. It's a good opportunity." Bruno jumped at once, excited. "There it is. That's our chance, Pablo. Pablo, let's go before someone else takes the job." Pablo got up slowly, shaking his pants. "Well, I guess it's a good start," he said with a half-smile. And so it all began. Every morning, before the sun lit up the mountains, the 2 friends went up with empty cubes and came down loaded with water. The road was long, steep, and full of rocks that did the hardest job they could imagine. But while Pablo worked in silence, Bruno didn't miss the opportunity to compete. "Come on, Turtle. If you keep this up, you'll never have enough to buy a chicken coop." Bruno joked, getting ahead with his cubes. Pablo, with sweat dripping down his face, replied calmly, "I'd rather get there in one piece, Bruno. It doesn't make sense to get there fast if you can't move afterwards." At first, the job seemed like an exciting challenge. But soon Pablo began to notice how his hands were filled with calluses, and his back hurt more with each day. One night, after finishing his day, the 2 friends sat in front of their little houses to rest. Bruno, proud, picked up one of his cubes and looked at it as if it were a trophy. "You know what, Pablo? I'm thinking about getting bigger cubes, so I can bring more water on each trip and earn more money. Bruno, in a little while, I'm going to buy my first cow. What do you say?" Pablo, with his legs crossed and looking at the stars, replied without taking his eyes off the sky. "Not bad, Bruno, but what if one day we can't carry more cubes? What if our strength fails us? I don't know if I want to always depend on my back to make money." Bruno let out a laugh, so loud that it echoed in the valley. "That's thinking too much, my friend. As long as we have strength, we have money. The rest doesn't matter." But that night, while Bruno snored happily in his bed, Pablo couldn't sleep. An idea was spinning in his head. He looked at the ceiling and murmured to himself, "What if there was a way to carry water without carrying these cubes? Something that works on its own, like a..." He suddenly got up with his eyes lit up. An aqueduct. The next morning, while climbing the mountain, Pablo decided to tell Bruno his idea. "Hey, Bruno, can you imagine if we build an aqueduct? An aqueduct? A channel that carries water from the spring to the village. It would be a lot of work at first, but once finished, the water would flow on its own, and we wouldn't have to carry more cubes." Bruno stopped and looked at it as if Pablo had just said it could fly. "An aqueduct?" he repeated, disbelieving. "Are you crazy? That would take years. While you're digging, I'm going to be making money and enjoying it. Besides, how do you know it would work?" Pablo shrugged. "Calm. I don't know, but I think it's worth trying." Bruno let out another laugh and gave him a pat on the shoulder. "Good luck with that. Dreamer. I'll keep my cubes." So Pablo started working on his aqueduct. Every day, after carrying water for the village, he spent his weekends digging, placing stones, and planning the route. The progress was slow, almost imperceptible, but he didn't give up. Meanwhile, The villagers, including Bruno, didn't miss a chance to make fun of him. "Look, there goes Pablo, the aqueduct man," they said in laughter. Bruno, always ready for a joke, added, "Watch out, Pablo. Don't drown yourself in your imaginary channel." But Pablo didn't let himself be intimidated. Every stone he placed was a step closer to his goal. "One day, you'll understand," he said, wiping the sweat off his forehead. Meanwhile, Bruno was still prospering. He had bought his first cow, fixed his house, and spent the nights in the tavern, enjoying his success. But with each passing day, his body began to resent the weight of the cubes. His hands, formerly strong, now hurt, and his back, always up, began to bend. Pablo, on the other hand, was still working in silence. Although slow, his project was advancing. He wasn't just building an aqueduct, he was building his future. Months passed, then years, and one day everything changed. After so much effort, sweat, and silent work, Pablo finished his aqueduct. It was an impressive structure, made with well-placed stones, and a design that followed the path from the mountain to the town. When he opened the door for the first time, the water flowed alone, crystalline and constant, filling the containers in the town square, without anyone having to carry a single cube. The sound of the water resounded like music, and the townspeople gathered, with their mouths open, to admire what they used to call Pablo's crazy dream. Bruno was there in the distance, with an empty cube in his hand. His back, bent after so many years of heavy work, made him look older than he really was. He watched the water flow, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't say a word. In his mind, the mockery he had thrown at Pablo for years resounded like a distant echo, replaced by a new sensation, admiration mixed with shame. That same afternoon, Pablo, as was his custom, went to sit under the tree next to the river, his favorite place. He was calm, with a serene smile on his face, enjoying the fresh air and the sound of the water running through his aqueduct. It wasn't long before he heard footsteps. He looked carefully and saw Bruno approaching, but this time he didn't have his usual smile or his upright posture. Bruno seemed tired, with his face marked by years of effort, but there was something different in his eyes. Humility. "Pablo?" Bruno said, letting himself fall heavily next to him. "I think I was wrong." Pablo raised an eyebrow, but he didn't say anything. He let his friend continue. "While you were there, digging and placing stones, I thought you were wasting your time. I laughed at you so many times." Bruno took a break, looking at his hands. "But now look at me. I can barely carry a bucket. Meanwhile, you have something that works for you. You don't need to break your back like me anymore." Pablo looked at him with a comprehensive smile, the one that always seemed to say more than his words could. "Bruno, this is not about who is right or not. Bruno, we all take different paths. The important thing is to learn from that and decide what to do next." Bruno sighed deeply, passing a hand over his face. Do you think I can still do something like what you did? I'm exhausted, but I don't want to continue like this. I want something better, like you." Pablo slapped him on the shoulder, but as Bruno used to do when he was joking. But this time, with a gesture full of sincerity. "It's never too late, friend, if you're willing to work on it. I can help you build your own aqueduct." Bruno looked at him surprised. "Would you really do that? After everything I said and the times I made fun of you?" Pablo felt without a doubt. Of course. What kind of friend would he be if he didn't do it? Bruno thanked him by giving a hug to his friend, crying with happiness. After a while, Bruno broke the silence. "You know, Pablo, I never thought that something as simple as a channel could change so much. I'm glad I learned from you." Pablo looked at him, feeling slowly. "And I learned something from you, Bruno. Sometimes you have to know how to enjoy the present, but without stopping working for the future." The aqueduct not only brought water to the town, but also left a lesson for both. True success is not always about working harder, but about working in a smarter way. And tell me, my friend, which part of this story did you like the most? Leave it in the comments below. I also want to let you know that there are many more videos on this channel. Don't miss them. Thank you very much, and see you next time.